We are joined by Senior Counsel for Global Affairs at the ACLJ, and of course, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who tweeted this yesterday. Tomorrow's arguments, and this was yesterday, obviously, we're talking about what we're talking about. Tomorrow's arguments before the Supreme Court of the United States are critical, and I pray they do what is right and reject President Biden's unconstitutional mandate. So, Secretary Pompeo, thanks for joining us.
Jordan, it's great to be with you.
Hey, Mike, so this is Jay, and I wanted to, I feel like I'm calling, a live baseball game here because we're talking about this while we're live, and it's still, the argument itself is still live. We've taken the position that statutorily and constitutionally that this was an unconstitutional move, and statutory authority wasn't there to do this. And without getting into the weeds, what was up in the case here was an administrative stay initially, and then a longer-term stay while the court gives the disposition. Give us your sense of the significance of this, because the problem here is not so much, and I've been a big advocate of the vaccines. I've been very clear on that, and I'm proud to say that. Other people have different positions. It's a free country. But here's the thing that I don't understand. I don't understand why the court didn't initially give an administrative stay, and the Solicitor General today changed the effective date of this, at least as to the testing, until February, which was interesting. I think that was to avoid the maybe administrative stay. But what's your sense of the situation?
Yeah, I think, Jay, you've scoped this out pretty well. First principle, this is an OSHA rule, right? I remember when we were trying to do things through administrative processes, they have ultimately failed to execute. So as a purely legal matter, I think this is ultimately going to be found by the Supreme Court not to be permissible or appropriate. I think they're going to strike this down. As for the immediacy of this, you could hear the response from the government under the questions that Justice Alito asked this morning. They know that they sat on this for a long time and now are declaring that this is an emergency in a way that doesn't permit the court the capacity to do this in a reasoned way. I think the courts are going to find that that's the case. On the bigger issue, on the practical import of this, I think you've got this exactly right. These mandates don't function to serve the purpose for which the Biden administration, the Justice Department, has put their legal defense forward. We know that this COVID thing is going to be here for a while. We know that most people are choosing to become vaccinated, and it is keeping them from going to hospitals and keeping them safer. Those are all good things. But the federal government issuing a mandate for such a thing and doing it on pain of loss of the capacity to take care of your family and feed your children and pay your lease and your rent, I think that is an outrageous overreach by the United States government as a policy matter, and I think they'll find it both unlawful and illegal as a legal and constitutional matter as well.
I would have gotten up and I say I don't ever want to criticize the lawyers that are arguing, because I've done this many, many times now and for 4 decades. And so, you're up there bobbing and weaving. It's easy to criticize when you're not the one having to come up with this. But one of the things I said was I would have initially said, first of all, that what President Biden said was correct, that there's not a federal solution here, that the states have to solve this, because the states can deal with it on the state basis where there's issues, and they can even delegate that to the counties. That's number one. Number two, the testing mandate problem is not that the test is so invasive. It's that you can't get the test. So it's the doctrine of legal impossibility. You can't even comply with this. So, I find the whole approach here to be constitutionally awkward, to say the least, and that may be a new phrase, but and constitutionally suspect. But trying to apply this, we were up till, Mike, last night with our HR people trying to figure out what do we do for Monday. This is how complicated this situation is. And you've got employees that can't be vaccinated because of immunocompromisation. And can they get tested in time? These are real situations that people have. And like I said, I'm pro-vax, but the government doing this is just difficult to conceive of how this can roll out smoothly. And of course, that's why the government said, oh, no, we're not going to have testing until February now, which is not actually what the mandate says.
No, that's right. Look, Jay, this is not an academic exercise. This is a real exercise where real lives are going to be impacted, not only the individuals' lives and their families' lives, but the lives of businesses trying to figure out how to get enough pilots to fly airplanes, and for companies like yours, businesses like yours, organizations like the ACLJ to continue to perform their important missions. This was put together hastily in an attempt to suggest somehow that they were doing something, because I think as a political matter, President Biden claimed he was going to destroy the virus. We can see by the hundreds of thousands of cases every day, he hasn't done that. So he's got a politically difficult bridge. And so they put They sent OSHA off, the Department of Labor off to put together rules to do something. And I think now the poor lawyers who are having to defend this can see that the do something theory is used constitutionally awkward. I think that's pretty diplomatic and kind. Maybe you can run the State Department one day. I think this is constitutionally a disaster. And from the perspective of our governance model, this would give OSHA the right to do just about anything in the name of safety for the workplace.
I always try to be kind to the lawyers arguing, because I've been in that position where you get the left, the kind of the left hook question. I should say, Justice Stevens, who was a really nice guy, but he would give you, anytime he would say the words "supposing" as part of his hypothetical, you knew you were about to get a left hook. So get your arms up, because you got to block it. Having said that, all right. So we look at this. I think about what happened when you were in office, and Operation Warp Speed, and all of these things moved in a systematic way. And then looking at it now, I hate to get into the politics of this, but it seems like, as I said, the Department of Justice changed the policy while they were up there today.
Yes, and the CDC and the NIH and others are changing their protocols and their guidance
Today.
Every day, sometimes multiple times a day. It certainly feels like it's to the whims of public perception of what's taking place. What we need is good science, rational debate, good logic in the presentation of how the federal government messages, and then let these governors, let these county commissioners, let these school boards make good decisions for their own systems, their own states, their own regions, and we'll get to a solution that is workable to deal with this ongoing challenge from COVID much more quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mike, I totally agree on that part. I think that the part of what you saw today unfold, and it's still unfolding as we're live, is that the lack of clarity of the mandate itself has created a really big part of the problem here. Quickly, let me close with this, Mike. We only got about a minute left here. We don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do. Maybe they'll issue a stay, maybe they don't. But the end result of this does show that Supreme Court justices make a big difference.
They do. We can never forget that. The ACLJ has done a wonderful job of highlighting the different positions that different justices taking, talking about why this matters. We all know that these elections for President of the United States and for the United States Senate matter, because those are the folks that choose who our justices are. And if they choose people who are political and aren't prepared to defend the Constitution, then there's real risk to the Republic.
All right, the former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, the Senior Counsel to the ACLJ. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate your insight. As I said, we're calling it live as we see it, and I appreciate that.